This podcast was produced using artificial intelligence and refined by human editors.
Welcome, adventurers and lounge chair travelers, to another episode of Travel with Lara and Luca.
We've missed you. But worry not, because today's show is going to be like that refreshing ocean breeze on a hot Miami day. That's right, today's all about Miami.
Miami, the magic city, home of palm trees, pulsating nightlife, and...
Stop, Luca, you're making me want to drop this mic and grab my sunglasses.
We wouldn't want to interrupt our stream of Miami musings, would we?
Definitely not. I've got stories lined up that'll make our listeners feel sand under their toes.
Well, let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Indeed it is, Luca. Miami, a city that's synonymous with endless summer, a melting pot of cultures, and an Art Deco wonderland.
Oh, and how can we forget the beaches? The golden sands of South Beach beckon like a siren's call.
South Beach, where the water is as clear as a jewel, and the people watching is second to none.
But beyond South Beach, there's so much more to Miami. We're talking about a city that's vibrant, it's constantly evolving, and surprise, it's full of history.
You know, Luca, every time we talk about Miami, I can't help but remember that time we tried to salsa our way down Calle Ocho.
And remember how that ended? With you showing off your moves and me, well, trying not to step on any toes.
But that's the beauty of Miami, isn't it? Whether you've got two left feet or you're a dancing queen, there's a beat in this city that just gets under your skin.
And speaking of skin, one simply can't ignore the ubiquitous presence of tattoos in Wynwood.
Wynwood, the street art there could make a grown man weep. Walls don't talk, but there they surely sing.
A symphony in spray paint, truly. And let's not forget those charming little corners where we'd stumble upon hidden cafes serving up the best cafecito in town.
Did someone say cafecito? Because that's a Miami must. That strong Cuban espresso hits you like the city's own brand of sunshine.
We're talking about the kind of kick that'll keep you dancing till dawn, which incidentally isn't hard to do in Miami.
Between the salsa clubs, the beach raves, the jazz haunts, music in Miami is more than a scene. It's a way of life.
And let's not forget the fashion. From designer boutiques to vintage finds, this city has a style so hot it'd make the mercury weep.
Indeed, Luca. And for those in search of the slower life, Miami's got quaint spots too, like the secret gardens that give you a pocket of shade and a whisper of the ocean breeze.
Speaking of whispers, we've got those deliciously secretive stories and hidden sights reserved for today's podcast, haven't we?
Oh yes. But before we dive into the clandestine corners of Miami, we're going to explore the places that define this city.
Iconic sites where the essence of Miami shines brighter than the Floridian sun.
We're taking you on a journey from the shimmering skyscrapers downtown to the artistic murals of Little Havana, where every wall tells a story.
So stick with us, folks. Get comfortable, pour yourself a mojito if that's your thing, and let Lara and I transport you to the sandy shores and city streets of sultry Miami.
And hold on to your hats, because after we reveal Miami's iconic landmarks, we're taking a deep dive into the culinary scene that makes this city a feast for the senses.
A tease for your taste buds, but that's all coming up in our next segment. For now, let's start at the heart of it all.
And just like that, we're surfing the wave from our intro into segment 1, iconic sites of Miami, those landmarks and vistas that paint the postcards and flood Instagram feeds.
Postcards. Are those still a thing, Lara? I thought we just tagged our locations and moved on.
Oh, Luca, for you maybe. But some of us still appreciate the tangible touch of a Miami sunset on glossy cardstock. Speaking of sunsets, no mention of iconic sites is complete without starting with the one, the only, South Beach.
South Beach, where the sand is as white as the teeth of the rollerbladers zooming past you.
Absolutely, and that iconic Art Deco skyline glows like it's eternally stuck in the roaring 20s.
Not that we're complaining. Those pastel-colored buildings have stories etched in every streamlined modern curve. Lara, what's your favorite Art Deco building on Ocean Drive?
Such a tough choice, but the Colony Hotel's neon sign might just be the cherry on the Miami cake for me. It's like stepping back into an old Hollywood movie whenever I see that glow.
You know, last time I strolled down Ocean Drive, I couldn't help but get that hit of nostalgia. The The classic cars lined up outside the hotels just add to it. It's like a time warp.
Totally. Except everyone's got smartphones in hand instead of cigarette holders. It certainly makes my inner flapper girl want to do the Charleston.
I'd pay good money to see that, Lara. Now, if we're sticking to the shores, let's not ignore the lifeguard stands. They're practically celebrities in their own right.
That's true. Those stands are like Technicolor guardians watching over the throngs of sun worshippers. And each one has its own personality.
There's one that's straight out of a comic book. Another looks like it could moonlight as a spaceship.
And my personal favorite, the one that looks like an Art Deco masterpiece, rocked up from the 1930s and asked for a splash of neon paint.
How about the one that always seems to be photobombing the influencers' selfies?
You mean the one that's practically a beacon of Miami's vibrant beach culture?
The very same. But I've got to pivot us away from the soft sands to the hustle and bustle of Miami's Little Havana. The music, the culture, it's like a piece of Cuba right here in Florida.
You can't talk about Little Havana without a nod to the vibrant domino park, the click-clacking of domino tiles, the boisterous conversations in Spanish. It's Miami in a microcosm.
And the scent of cigar smoke mingling with espresso in the air.
Which brings us to the sensory overload that is Calle Ocho, a street where Miami's heart beats loud and proud.
Lara, have you ever tried a guarapo? That sugarcane juice from the street vendors there?
Oh, that's pure sweet Miami in a cup. And when you're sipping it to the tune of some live salsa, you can't help but feel like you've stepped into a whole different world.
Speaking of sounds, let's not forget the pulsating pulse of Bayfront Park and the amphitheater. The lineup of concerts there has made some serious musical history.
Certainly, Luca. And just around the corner, American Airlines Arena is pretty much an emblem of the city at this point.
That's where our sports fans find their mecca, cheering on the heat and fueling that Miami passion.
And when it's lit up at night, it's like a beacon calling out to everyone saying, "This is Miami." Impossible to miss and even harder to forget.
But if we're going to wax poetic about lights, we've got to mention the Miami Tower, a chameleon in the skyline, changing its colors to the beat of the city's heart.
Exactly, whether it's flashing dolphins teal, heat's red, or rainbow for pride, it's a fluorescent mood ring for the city's energy.
You know, we can't wrap up this iconic journey without taking to the sea, to the historic Cape Florida Lighthouse at Bill Baggs Cape Florida State Park.
The stoic watchman that's been guiding ships since 1825. Now that's an icon with resilience. It's seen its share of hurricanes and rebuilds.
And the 360-degree view from the top, nothing short of breathtaking.
That's our Miami, isn't it? A city painted with history, vibrant colors, and lifeguard stands with attitude.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But folks, trust us when we say that iconic Miami is just the appetizer.
Speaking of appetizers, I'm getting hungry for our next segment too, where we'll take your taste buds on a tour with Miami's delicious cuisine. Think Cuban sandwiches, stone crabs, and a cocktail or two under the palm trees.
I can almost taste the mojo marinated pork. Stay with us as we dig into the flavor-packed world of Miami's culinary scene.
We're about to get seriously delicious up in here. Don't go anywhere.
Miami's cuisine. A taste of the tropics, a fusion of 100 cultures, a culinary treasure chest.
Absolutely, Luca. Think about it. You're walking down Calle Ocho in Little Havana. The air is filled with the smell of Cuban coffee and pastelitos. Can it get any better than this?
Oh, those pastries are little pockets of heaven, Lara. Flaky on the outside, sweet or savory on the inside. I mean, you have one with guava and cheese, and suddenly life is brighter, right?
Speaking of bright, how bright does our beloved city shine through its signature dish, the Cuban sandwich? The layers tell the story of Miami, don't they?
It's like history in a bite. Cuban bread crisped to perfection, ham, roasted pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, and mustard. It's not just a sandwich, it's Miami between two slices of bread.
Then there's the famous stone crab, right? The seasonality makes it a treat, all the more special because you can only enjoy it fresh part of the year.
I have a rule, Lara. When stone crab season is in, everything else is out. That tender meat, the rituals of cracking the claws, it's about the experience as much as the taste.
That ritual. And speaking of rituals, mojo, that garlicky citrus marinade that's used basically on everything.
Ah, yes, put that on shoe leather, and I'd probably eat it. But here's a fun challenge. Find a dish in Miami that hasn't been kissed by a hint of mojo. It's everywhere and on everything.
And why would you want to find a dish without it, Luca? It's sublime. But let's not forget about the sweet side of things. There's nothing quite like ending your meal with a slice of key lime pie, right?
Sweet side, she says, and goes straight for the tangiest, zestiest pie of them all. That color, that tang, always feels like a zingy fanfare on the tongue after a hearty meal.
It's that perfect balance, though. That creamy, dreamy filling with the crunchy, buttery graham cracker crust. I mean, it's a Floridian classic for a reason.
And for those with a more adventurous palate, well, they're in for a treat. Ever had gator bites, Lara?
I have, and let me tell you, listeners, it's something you've got to try at least once. The spices they use, it's like having a flavor party and everyone's invited.
Gator bites aside, Miami's treats are not just about food, but drinks too. The Cuban coffee culture here is strong, and I'm not just talking about the caffeine.
So strong, it'll give your heartbeat a new rhythm. That cafecito is a social cornerstone around here.
And let's not leave out the cortadito, for when you want a little milk with your potent brew. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount to keep you buzzing along Ocean Drive.
Right? Or, the fresh fruit stands selling coconut water, mangoes, mammy, papaya. How tropical and refreshing is that?
The taste of sunshine and sea breeze in every slurp and bite. And oh, don't get me started on ceviche. Fresh seafood cured in citrus juices with peppers, onions, and cilantro. It's like a splash of the ocean right on your palate.
Seafood does seem to taste better here, doesn't it? It's like the ocean's bounty is on full display, just daring you to try every single preparation possible.
From food truck tacos and empanadas to fine dining experiences where the food presentation is an art form in itself, Miami's got it all.
It's true, Luca. You can travel the whole world within a few city blocks. It's a melting pot that leaves you with a melting pot belly.
Ah, but no regrets, Lara. Every bite is a story, every flavor a memory. That's Miami for you.
And as much as we could talk forever about the delicious cuisine of Miami, we have more secrets to share, don't we?
We sure do. Up next is the slightly unconventional, the somewhat curious. Are you ready for this, listeners? We're about to delve into Miami's hidden gems.
Stay tuned for the spots that have captured our hearts and will surely steal yours too.
All right, Lara, let's meander off Miami's beaten path and talk about those hidden gems, those secret spots that only the locals know about.
I love this part. Miami is brimming with the unexpected. Let's start with this tiny art gallery I found in Little Havana, tucked away between a cafe and a bodega.
Oh, I think I know the one. It's like stepping into a time capsule, right? With that eclectic mix of contemporary art and historic Cuban pieces.
Exactly, but what makes it a real gem is the owner. She gives you the backstory on every piece. I could spend hours there.
There's a richness to these hidden spots. It's like they've got their own heartbeat, their own breath, that whispers their stories to those who pay attention.
What about you, Luca? Have you discovered any secret spots that just made you go, wow?
Have I ever? There's this one garden I stumbled upon in Coral Gables. It was like a green haven of exotic plants. It had a mini waterfall and these hidden stone benches, perfect for escaping the buzz of the city.
Ah, the urban oasis. There's something about finding nature in the city that is utterly enchanting, isn't it?
Yeah, and speaking of enchanting, remember that speakeasy bar we found behind the unmarked door in Wynwood?
Oh, how could I forget? You needed a password to enter, and inside was this roaring 20s vibe with the live jazz band.
They served cocktails inspired by old Miami, remember? The Al Capone was my favorite. What a flavorful twist on a classic.
I'm still dreaming about that perfectly shaken drink. And oh, talking about dreams, there's that tiny bookshop we ran into. Do you remember the one with floor-to-ceiling shelves?
Vaguely. But wasn't there a resident cat lounging on top of a pile of Hemingway novels?
That's the one. The cat's name was Faulkner, and every book in there had a tale to tell, not just through the words on the pages, but through the notes left by past readers.
Sometimes these gems are about the experiences they offer, not just the sights. It's like everyone has a favorite corner of Miami they've personally connected with.
True, and there's that spot on the outskirts of the design district, that colorful community garden. Remember how every plant and mural seemed to have been touched by magic?
Absolutely. It's the community's touch that gives places like that their soul. You could see the diversity of Miami through those murals, through the stories painted on the walls.
We've talked about art, nature, cocktails. Oh, but what about music? Remember that vinyl shop in Allapattah?
The one with the secret jazz sessions after hours? If walls could talk, those would sing the history of Miami's music scene.
Hidden gems and music in Miami go hand in hand. So many artists started in those no-frills, low-key venues.
All right, before we lose ourselves reminiscing and no one gets to hear about these incredible places, we should probably steer this ship towards our next treasure trove.
Agreed. But as we wrap this up, I reflect on how these places we've mentioned, these hidden gems, they feel like little secrets whispered from Miami's soul to ours.
Beautifully put. And to our listeners, Miami has plenty of secrets left to share, just waiting to be discovered. So next time you're here, look beyond the postcards.
And with that, let's move on to our next segment where we unfurl the stories of Miami's iconic must-see places. You know, the ones that you might think you know, but we'll show you why there's still so much more to uncover. And just like that, you've been let in on the secret spots of Miami, those hidden gems that even some locals might not know about. But all right, we've had our fun off the beaten path. It's time to dive into the famous must-see places in Magic City.
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt, every time someone says Miami, visions of South Beach's golden sands dance in your head. But we've got more up our sleeves, don't we, Lara?
We sure do. Picture this, Luca, the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens, a stunning glimpse into the Gilded Age. It's like stepping right into the pages of an F. Scott Fitzgerald novel.
Ah, you can almost see Jay Gatsby wandering the gardens, and I'll raise you the vibrant streets of Little Havana. You can literally feel the pulse of the city's Cuban heartbeat with every step, can't you?
You've got that right. Calle Ocho is buzzing day and night with music, art, and cuisine. It's a cultural tapestry that's essential in the Miami mosaic. But we can't forget Wynwood Walls either, the epicenter of urban art.
Ah, Wynwood, the graffiti mecca. Once warehouses and now they're canvases for multicultural expression. But let's not forget the science enthusiasts. What about the Frost Science Museum?
Oh, how could I not? That shark-filled aquarium is something else, isn't it? And the planetarium shows are simply out of this world. Pun fully intended.
Bravo on that pun, Lara, bravo. And speaking of water-related wonders, Miami Seaquarium is a classic, right?
It's a must, even if just to wave hello to a dolphin. Although, for a more tranquil experience, Fairchild Tropical Botanic Garden is where I'd send someone to really breathe in that tropical flora.
Perfect for that serene afternoon. You know, speaking of serene, the ancient Spanish monastery. Sometimes we forget about this medieval piece of Spain tucked away right in North Miami Beach.
Sticky Summer Day Remedy, the Venetian pool in Coral Gables. It's like swimming in a piece of history. Literally. It's the only pool on the National Register of Historic Places.
Fun in the sun, indeed. And I've got to say, Bill Baggs Cape Florida State Park. Those lighthouse views, that's where I'd love to watch the sunrise.
And I'll admit it's a tie between sunrise there and sunset at the ever-so-lush Matheson Hammock Park. The views of Biscayne Bay, Luca, they're like paintings.
Yes, perfectly put. Now, with our listeners mentally packing their bags for these must-see Miami locales, I think we've sparked enough wanderlust to warrant some truly curious Miami trivia. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more. Who knew that a city known for its neon lights and beach parties also holds some bizarre and laugh-worthy secrets up its sleeves? Stay tuned for the weird, the wonderful, and the wait, what facts about Miami you never knew you needed. All right, listeners, you've made it to the segment 5 of our sun-drenched Miami saga, the Weird Facts segment. Here's where we reveal those delightful oddities that make Miami, oh, so intriguing.
Yes, and speaking of oddities, did you know that it's illegal to imitate animals in Miami? That's right, Lara, no growling, meowing, or mooing if you want to stay on the right side of the law.
Oh, Luca, I can't imagine holding back my inner lioness on South Beach. But hey, let's bring in an even quirkier fact. Picture this. A 2,000-pound grand piano mysteriously appeared on a sandbar in Biscayne Bay in 2011, and nobody knew why.
A grand performance nobody could attend. I remember they had to get it removed for being a navigational hazard. Imagine sailing your yacht and bam, there's a piano in your path.
Now, Miami's Venetian Pool, a gorgeous swimming spot, right, Luca? It's the only pool to also be a natural wonder. It has its water replaced daily through artesian wells and used to have an orchestra perform on a floating island.
Ah, I miss those orchestral notes floating on the water. But if we're talking about water, let's not forget that Miami is home to the only Everglades ecosystem in the world. It's a swamp, sure, but also an international treasure.
Absolutely, the city on the swamp. But if you thought it's the only place for wildlife, think again. We've got wild green parakeets, descendants of escaped pets, squawking away in our backyards.
The soundtrack of Miami's suburbs. And speaking of sound, Lara, what about the mysterious booming noises some Miamians hear? They're called the Biscayne Bay booms, akin to a sonic boom, and nobody's quite sure what causes them.
UFOs are just Mother Nature showing off her base levels? We might never know, Luca. Changing tunes, let's talk about the historic Freedom Tower. It was once Miami's main airport terminal. Imagine planes landing in downtown.
Lara, it's an art museum now. Imagine if flights still arrived there. How's that for a layover experience? But how about the fact that Miami got named thanks to a misunderstanding? Miami might come from Miami, a native term for big water, not the city's name.
A big mix-up with lasting results. Here's a refreshing one, though. Miami installs sunscreen dispensers around public places for free, protecting their citizens' skin with a side of care.
Nothing says I love you like free sunscreen. And while we're being protective, did you know that it's actually illegal to rollerblade on the streets and sidewalks of the Miami Business District?
Looks like I'll have to hang up my rollerblading dreams, Luca. But you remember the Miami River, don't you? Except it's not really a river, it's a tidal inlet, and bid farewell to your freshwater fishing dreams right there.
Rivers schmivers. And for our automobile enthusiasts, it's worth noting that Miami issued the first speeding ticket to a driver racing at the hair-raising speed of, wait for it, 6 miles per hour.
Zooming into the history books, no doubt. But that's not as strange as the fact that Miami is the only major city in the United States that was founded by a woman, the indomitable Julia Tuttle, the mother of Miami.
Kudos to Julia. In other news, the Miami-Dade County Courthouse was once the tallest building in the city, but it's perhaps now known more for its slightly sinking foundation. Gives a whole new meaning to the concept of justice being weighty.
Gravity-defying justice, just like Miami's wild side. From sunken pianos to no rollerblading zones, Miami really serves up uniqueness on a golden, sunscreen-lathered platter.
And talking about history, Lara, imagine if those pianos on sandbars and parrots from pet lineage could tell their tales. Oh wait, they can, sort of, through the enthralling past of this city.
That's right, Luca. Coming up next, we dive deep into the historic tapestry that's as colorful and compelling as the city itself. Stay tuned for segment 6, where we unravel Miami's roots, from the Tequesta tribes to the Magic City's boom.
Welcome back, fellow travelers. If you thought Miami was just about sun-kissed beaches, wait till you hear its fascinating tale.
That's right, Luca. It's time to dive into the depths of Miami's vibrant history, and trust me, it's as colorful as the murals in Wynwood walls.
So true, Lara. Let's start with the original inhabitants, the Tequesta tribe. They fished and lived off this land for more than 2,000 years before any Europeans set foot here.
And speaking of firsts, Ponce de Leon, in 1513, searching for the Fountain of Youth, was the first European to note the existence of the Miami area. Although he didn't exactly find what he was looking for, did he?
Not unless the Fountain of Youth was hiding in the mangroves. It wasn't until 1566 that Pedro Menendez de Avalos came to the area, wanting to extend Spanish settlements.
That's ages ago. But Miami as we know it really started to take shape in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The arrival of the Florida East Coast Railway by Henry Flagler in 1896 was a game changer.
Absolutely, Lara. That railway kicked off Miami's growth. And here's a nugget for you. Miami is the only major U.S. city that was founded by a woman, Julia Tuttle.
Yes, the mother of Miami. She convinced Flagler to extend the railroad here and even gave him land for a hotel. Talk about a strategic business move.
Fast forward a bit, and we have the Roaring '20s, where Miami saw a surge in population and a real estate boom to match.
And then came the bust, including the devastating hurricane of 1926. It really seemed like Miami's bright future was hanging by a thread.
But Miami is nothing if not resilient. It bounced back, becoming a prime training ground for soldiers during World War II.
And those soldiers remembered the beauty of Miami, came back after the war, sparking another population boom.
Not to mention the Cuban Revolution's impact in the 50s. The exodus from Cuba in the following decades significantly shaped the cultural and political landscape of the city.
It brought us Little Havana and made Miami the vibrant cultural melting pot it is today. We must also mention the Mariel boat lift of 1980, which brought another wave of Cuban immigrants.
And around that time, we saw Miami's crime rates spike, leading to its not-so-flattering nickname back then, Paradise Lost.
But in true Miami fashion, it transformed yet again. The 80s and 90s brought a revitalization of the Art Deco district, with celebrities flocking to South Beach.
Fast forward to today, and Miami's not only a center for finance and commerce, but also an arts and culture hotspot.
And let's not forget about Miami's role in the music industry, shaping the sound of Latin and electronic tunes that we groove to today.
Miami's history is a roller coaster ride of triumph, transformation, and tenacity, that's for sure.
And each chapter adds another layer of charm to this city, attracting millions who want a piece of its magic.
Speaking of charm, after all that historical talk, I'm ready to share some savvy insights into traversing this wonderful city.
Sounds perfect. In the next segment, we'll give you all the expert travel tips you could ever need. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or a Miami first-timer, you won't want to miss this. So Luca, we've awed our listeners with Miami's historic tales and quirky facts. Now let's give them the keys to the city. It's time for some of our expert travel tips.
Absolutely, Lara. Miami has its own rhythm, and knowing a few tips can help you move to the beat. First up, let's talk about getting around. While having a car gives you freedom, parking can be quite the challenge, especially in South Beach.
That's right, Luca. I say when in Miami Beach, do as the beachgoers do, walk or rent a bike. There's a bike sharing program called City Bike, which is perfect for short trips along the coast.
And for those wanting to explore beyond the beach, Miami's public transit includes buses, a metro system, and the Metro Mover, which is free and perfect for downtown.
On top of that, rideshare apps like Uber and Lyft operate widely, so you can always find a ride if the tropical rain decides to join your vacation.
Now, if you're not a fan of planning ahead, let me share a tip. Spontaneous trips to tourist hotspots can disappoint, so savvy travelers should book ahead for attractions like the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens or a boat tour around the bay.
True. And speaking of tours, you might find that some attractions offer discounts if you bundle them up. So keep an eye out for those deals, folks.
Lara, why don't you share that little secret about the beaches?
The beaches. So everyone knows about South Beach, but there are so many other beautiful spots with fewer crowds. Try places like Surfside or Virginia Key Beach.
Excellent choice. And for anyone coming with little ones or who prefer a more laid-back atmosphere, the beaches in Key Biscayne are not to be missed.
Now let's touch on an uncomfortable topic, but it's a must. Tourist scams. Sadly, every city has them, and Miami is no exception. Be wary of those friendly faces offering you deals on the street for tours or experiences that seem too good to be true.
Great point, Lara. Stick to reputable companies and check online reviews before you commit to anything, and never feel pressured to make on-the-spot decisions.
Moving on to dining, I can't tell you how many times I've seen tourists flock to the flashy, overpriced spots on Ocean Drive.
Oh, the travesty, Lara. Folks, venture into the local neighborhoods like Little Havana or the Design District for authentic and sometimes cheaper eats.
Exactly. And always ask for the price before you order that giant Instagram-worthy cocktail or seafood platter. Some prices are only revealed after the fact, and they can be as salty as the sea.
Nobody wants to pay $50 for a drink, no matter how many sparklers are attached. Now, since we're talking cash, it's important to mention tipping. In Miami, it's usual to tip around 15 to 20% at restaurants and a few bucks for your bartender.
Yep, tipping is part of the culture and much appreciated by the hardworking service staff. Also, don't forget to keep some cash on hand for those small mom-and-pop shops that might not accept cards.
Spot on. And while we're on the topic of money, let me emphasize the importance of a good travel insurance policy. With all the water sports, adventure activities, and general revelry, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Can't argue with that. Adventure can sometimes come with a twist, so better have that insurance in your back pocket.
And for our final tip, respect the local culture and environment. Miami is a melting pot of cultures. Embrace the experience, try speaking a bit of Spanish, and always be mindful of the natural beauty around you.
Leave nothing behind but your footprints in the sand, right, Luca?
Exactly. Keep those beaches spotless and the ocean trash-free. Miami will thank you, and so will the sea turtles.
Well, folks, I hope you're scribbling all these down, or better yet, just replay our charming voices, giving you the lowdown anytime.
Subscribe, and you can have us on repeat, giving you the best travel tips, historical nuggets, and enough Miami trivia to make you a quiz night champ.
Speaking of trivia, stay tuned, because next, we're venturing into the great beyond with our favorite side excursions. You won't want to miss where we're taking you.
A hint, think alligators, key lime pie, and Hemingway. But for now, we're wrapping up our travel tips, armed and ready to take on Magic City.
And remember, whether you're sipping Cafe Cubano or dancing salsa under the stars, Miami knows how to show you a good time.
Stay with us, adventurers, as we reveal the best day trips to amplify your Miami experience. Because sometimes the best treasures are a stone's throw away.
And just when you thought we'd covered all the wonder that Miami has to offer, we're going to step just a smidge outside the city limits. Welcome back, folks. It's time to talk side excursions.
Right, because as much as Miami is a world within a city, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't explore a bit further afield. So buckle up. Let's get those day bags packed, Lara.
First stop, the Everglades. This vast river of grass is just a stone's throw from the city, and it's like stepping onto another planet.
Absolutely. And if you don't see an alligator within, I'd say, the first 15 minutes. Are you even in the Everglades?
Have I ever told you about the time I tried airboating there?
You haven't, but I have this feeling you're about to.
Naturally. So there I am, wind in my hair, gleeful grin on my face, when the boat suddenly lurches sideways.
Please tell me you didn't fall in.
No, but I did scream like I was auditioning for a horror movie. Turns out it was just a little bump from an overly curious gator.
Only you, Lara.
But the wildlife is not all the Everglades offers. The bird watching, oh, it's sublime.
Bird watching, you say? Not exactly the adrenaline rush of your airboat saga.
Don't knock it till you've tried it, my friend. The roseate spoonbills are a sight to behold. Plus, if you're into photography, the sunsets there, chef's kiss.
If we're talking excursions, we can't leave out the quirky charm of Key West. You've been, right?
Dozens of times. The drive down there is part of the experience. 7-mile bridge with the ocean on both sides, it's like driving on water.
And once you're there, it's basically a free-for-all of art, history, and cats with extra toes.
Hemingway's Six-Toed Cats. Yes, a tour of his house is a, wait for it, perfect way to spend an afternoon.
I think your pun just made a few listeners cringe, Lara. But seriously, the vibe in Key West is laid back, artistic, almost Caribbean in a way.
And if you're there at the right time, catch the sunset celebration at Mallory Square. It's a nightly festival. Street performers, food vendors, and the most spectacular sunset you've ever seen.
Mallory Square? Isn't that where you joined in with the fire dancers?
I have no recollection of such an event. What happens in Key West?
Stays in Key West. Got it. Now another gem is Biscayne National Park. It's mainly underwater, so it's a haven for snorkelers and divers.
Oh, the coral reefs there are beautiful. I saw a school of neon fish once that was so bright I thought I was hallucinating.
That's the magic of the place, though. It's like an aquarium you get to swim in. No glass separating you from the wonders of the deep.
You do paint a vivid picture, Luca. And hey, remember, no trip is too small or too close to home to be an adventure.
True. And speaking of adventures, have you heard about the fruit orchards out in Homestead? It's a much more subdued outing, but quite a sweet one, I might add.
Orchards in Homestead. Now you're speaking my language. The tropical fruit wines they make, simply divine.
There's something about plucking that ripe fruit, the juice running down your chin.
You do realize you're starting to sound like a bad commercial, right?
It's the passion, Lara. I can't help it. But enough about fruit. There's also the option of taking a day to hang out in Fort Lauderdale.
Ah, the Venice of America, with its enchanting canals and water taxi routes.
Plus, I'll never tire of the shops along Las Olas Boulevard. It's like Rodeo Drive met a tropical breeze.
Last time I was there, I came back with artwork, jewelry, and I kid you not, a pair of sandals I swear were designed solely for going to beach bars.
That sounds like quite the haul. But no matter where you venture out, there's no denying that side excursions around Miami offer a slice of Florida life that's as varied as it is enchanting.
That's the beauty of it. You can start in the heart of the city, and with just a short drive, you're in a whole new world.
Experiences that take you from the wilds of nature to the heart of culture. Florida's cache of treasures really is boundless.
And hey, whether you're watching sunsets in the Keys or meeting curious wildlife in the Everglades, it's all part of the rich tapestry that is Miami and its surroundings.
Oh, beautifully put, Lara. And speaking of the treasures of Miami, we're not quite done yet. Ready for our final segment?
As ready as I'll ever be. We've got some thoughts to wrap up, some sweet goodbyes to say, and maybe a last-minute surprise or two.
You'll just have to stick around to find out. After a brief break, we're diving into our conclusion and final thoughts, where we do our best to sum up the indescribable allure of my Miami. And here we are, at our favorite part of the show, the conclusion and final thoughts. Isn't it amazing how quickly our Miami journey has flown by, Lara?
It sure has, Luca. We've danced our way through the iconic sights, savored the delicious cuisine, and uncovered some hidden treasures.
Oh, and let's not forget the must-see spots we explored, the weird facts that had us chuckling, and the deep dive into Miami's colorful history.
Definitely can't skip past those expert travel tips we dished out. I mean, who knew you could avoid South Beach parking woes with a quick scooter ride?
Or the side excursions. I'm still daydreaming about those Everglades alligators. But now, let's look back at the heart of our discussion today, the essence of Miami.
Miami's not just a place, it's a feeling, right? The warm sun on your skin, the music that moves like the ocean waves, the blend of cultures.
Absolutely poetic, Lara. It's a city that never stands still, always pulsing with life and energy. In Miami, every sunrise brings new possibilities.
And it's those possibilities that make the city such a canvas. I mean, every visitor paints their own picture with the experiences they choose.
You're so spot on. Miami is this mosaic of stories and lives weaving together, and every person who visits adds their own tile to the artwork.
And let's not forget the locals who are the original artists, constantly reshaping and adding vibrant new colors to the picture.
Yeah, their warmth and spirit are what truly make Miami glow like the golden sunsets at Pier Park.
A sight that always leaves me breathless. And speaking of breathtaking, remember that view from the top of the historic lighthouse?
Do I ever? That panoramic view of the city and the ocean was a literal and figurative high point of our trip.
Miami, to me, feels like the friend you can always count on for an adventure, whether it's paddleboarding by day or salsa dancing by night.
How eloquent. And you know, Lara, that's why Miami has a piece of my heart. It's spontaneous, full of life, with a rhythm that matches my own.
I couldn't agree more. But as our episode winds down, I'm curious, what do you think our listeners will remember the most?
I hope it's the unexpected gems, like that charming bookshop we found tucked away behind the bougainvillea on that side street.
Or maybe they'll remember our laughter as we talked about that strange law on roller skating that we discovered.
Or it could be a newfound appreciation for the stories that built this city, from its indigenous roots to the Art Deco boom.
Whatever it is, I hope that we've inspired a few to to experience Miami themselves and maybe even share their adventures with us.
That would be the ultimate compliment, wouldn't it? Listeners becoming travelers, adding their own chapters to Miami's endless storybook.
And for those who've been there or live there, maybe we've sparked a new way to look at their city. Miami is a treasure chest that is never fully emptied.
How true. And as we sign off, dear friends, remember to take a bit of Miami's spirit with you. Let life be as bright and bold as South Beach's lifeguard stands.
And never stop exploring, because that's how the best stories are written, by living them. Don't forget to join us next time when we'll be embarking on...
That's a secret for now, Lara. Let's keep a little mystery for our next rendezvous.
Tease. All right, folks, send us your thoughts, your stories, and keep dancing to the rhythm of life. Until next time.
Thank you for traveling with us. This has been Travel with Lara and Luca. Stay curious, stay adventurous, and stay tuned for another magical episode.
Goodbye, Miami lovers, and remember, every sunset is an invitation to a new adventure. Until we meet again.